The deep silence of space was broken only by the slow hum of engines. A massive alien fleet floated above a dying world, their ships burning faint red against the darkness. The admirals of the Galactic Union sat in their command chamber, eyes locked on the central display. Every ship they had sent was there, hundreds of them, yet fear still filled the room. For weeks, the Union had been losing. Their fleets were powerful, their weapons advanced, but the enemy they now faced was unlike any they had ever seen. They called themselves the Krell Dominion, a race that conquered without mercy. Planets fell, one after another, and entire civilizations vanished in fire. The admirals knew they were running out of time. They whispered to each other in nervous tones. Some wanted to retreat, some wanted to bargain, but none of them had a real answer. The Krell's ships were faster, stronger, and equipped with weapons that cut through shields like paper. The Union's proud war fleets were reduced to ruins in battle after battle. And now, with the Dominion pushing deeper into Union space, the admirals faced a truth they could not ignore. No one in the galaxy could stop this enemy. But then, a single name was spoken. It was not the name of a Union ally. It was not the name of an ancient empire. It was something different, something almost forgotten. One admiral leaned forward and said the word that changed the room. Humans. The chamber went silent. Dozens of alien eyes turned to him. The word carried weight, but also mystery. Humanity was not a core member of the Union. They were young compared to most civilizations, still standing on the edge of the great stage. Yet, those who knew their history remembered stories of endless wars on their homeworld, of machines built not for peace but for destruction. The admirals hesitated. Could this primitive race truly help them? The Union had long looked down on Earth, seeing them as reckless, too aggressive, too dangerous to trust. But now, with the Dominion's shadow spreading, that danger suddenly seemed like hope. One of the elder admirals spoke, his voice trembling with both fear and urgency. If the Krell cannot be stopped by our fleets, then perhaps we must ask the ones who never stopped fighting in their own history. Humanity knows war in a way we do not. The decision was made. A message was sent to Earth, carried through hidden channels. It was a call for help, a plea from the mighty Union to the one world they once ignored. Far away, on the blue planet orbiting a yellow star, the message arrived. Human leaders gathered in a darkened war room. Generals, admirals, and scientists listened in silence as the Union's words played back. They were being asked to join a war that had already consumed whole civilizations. The enemy was brutal, unstoppable, a tide of fire across the stars. The room stayed quiet for a long moment. Some of the leaders frowned, others leaned back in thought. But then, an old admiral at the far end of the table smiled. His voice was calm, but his words carried iron. They are afraid. The great powers of the galaxy, terrified. They call us reckless, dangerous, but now they beg us to fight. The room stirred. Humanity had never been invited into the Union's inner circle, but now they were being asked to save it. The choice was not simple. If they refused, the galaxy might fall. If they agreed, humanity would face an enemy beyond anything they had fought before. The old admiral stood. His uniform was worn with years of service, his face marked with the weight of history. He looked at the men and women before him and gave the only answer humanity could give. We will fight. The decision sent waves across Earth. Factories lit up, producing weapons and ships. Old war programs were reawakened, ones the world had sworn never to use again. Deep within hidden bunkers, engines roared to life. Humanity did not just prepare to join the war, they prepared to end it. For years, Earth had been building in secret. Not just small fleets, but something far greater. A ship unlike anything the galaxy had seen. It was not built for defense. It was not built for peace. It was built for one purpose only, victory. In the darkness of a secret shipyard, covered by shields and cloaked against all scans, the warship waited. The Union did not know. The Krell did not know. No one in the galaxy truly understood what was coming. As the old admiral gave his final order, a single line carried across the command deck. Awaken the Leviathan. The galaxy was about to change forever. The galaxy did not sleep. Across thousands of worlds, fear spread like fire. News of the Dominion's unstoppable march echoed through trade lanes, pirate dens, royal courts, and hidden colonies. Civilizations that once felt untouchable now whispered of doom. They all asked the same question: who could stand against the Krell? On the Union's command station, the Admirals waited. They had sent their message to Earth, but many doubted the humans would answer. To the Union, humans were still outsiders, too wild and unpredictable to trust. Days turned into weeks, and hope began to fade. Then it happened. A signal came from the edge of Sol system. At first, Union sensors picked up nothing unusual, only a faint burst of encrypted data. But when the message was decoded, the Admirals went pale. It was short. Only 6 words. Humanity will enter the war. No other explanation, no conditions, no delay. Just a promise. The chamber grew tense. Some admirals felt relief, others fear. What would humans bring? Small fleets? Soldiers? Perhaps only words? None of them expected what was truly coming. Far away, in the hidden shipyards of Earth, preparations reached their peak. The great warship known only as Leviathan stirred like a giant waking from slumber. Its hull stretched for kilometers, a dark mountain of steel and fire. Every part of it was designed for battle. Its armor was layered thicker than any known dreadnought. Its engines burned hotter than any Union design. And its weapons, many of them classified even from Earth's own people, were created not for defense but annihilation. On Earth, men and women worked day and night. Engineers tuned engines with trembling hands, knowing what power they held. Pilots trained in simulators, pushed to the edge of human limits. Entire industries shifted overnight, pouring resources into the Leviathan and the fleet that would escort her. At the center of it all stood Admiral Kieran Holt, the same old soldier who had spoken for humanity when the Union's plea arrived. His eyes were sharp, his presence heavy with authority. Every order he gave carried the weight of finality. He had fought in Earth's last wars, seen nations fall and rise again. He knew what war demanded, and he knew humanity had no choice but to give everything. "Remember this," Holt said to his officers as they stood in the Leviathan's war room for the first time. "We are not entering this war as saviors. We are entering as survivors. If we fail, Earth burns. If we succeed, the galaxy remembers." The officers saluted. None of them doubted. They were chosen not only for skill but for willpower. Humanity's fleet was small compared to the Union's endless armadas, but it carried something the galaxy had long forgotten: unbroken spirit. Meanwhile, the Krell Dominion advanced. Their fleets tore through another Union defense line, leaving only wreckage. Their commanders laughed at the weakness of the galaxy's so-called powers. To them, this war was already won. But in the shadows of Sol, the Leviathan rose. Slowly, its titanic frame emerged from its drydock. Engines roared like thunder, shaking the ground of hidden bases. Massive hangars opened, releasing swarms of escort ships, frigates, destroyers, carriers, all designed to fight alongside their monstrous flagship. The first images of the Leviathan leaked through Union networks. At first, many dismissed them as false. No race as young as humanity could build something so massive, so advanced. But as the truth spread, fear turned to awe. In the Union's war chamber, the admirals stared at the image in silence. The ship was unlike anything they had seen. Its size dwarfed their strongest dreadnoughts. Its silhouette carried menace, every line built for destruction. One admiral whispered what the others were thinking. "If this is real, the galaxy itself has changed." Admiral Holt stood aboard his ship, watching the stars through the viewing glass. His voice was calm when he spoke, but his crew felt the weight behind his words. "We are not joining the Union," he said. "We are not fighting for their survival alone. We are fighting because no one else could stand. If we must be the wall, then we will be the wall. Orders spread across the fleet. Weapons were armed. Shields were tested. Engines prepared for their first jump. Humanity was ready. And then, the Leviathan's great engines lit with a fury brighter than suns. With a thunderous burst, the ship and her fleet vanished into the dark, entering the void beyond Earth. The galaxy would soon learn what it meant when humanity went to war. The Krell Dominion struck again. Their fleet tore through the skies of Vera Prime, a lush green world once filled with oceans and life. Now its cities burned, its people screamed, and its defenders fell one by one. From orbit, Krell warships rained fire down without mercy. The Union ships tried to resist, but they were shredded like paper before blades. In the command chamber of the Union's high station, the Admirals watched the disaster unfold. Some covered their faces, others cursed, but none of them could stop what was happening. Vera Prime was falling, just like all the others. And then, a signal came through. Not from the Union, not from one of their allies. It was a new code, one the Admirals had never seen before. A sharp alarm cut through the chamber, and a single line of text appeared on their screens. Leviathan inbound. The room fell silent. For a moment, no one understood. Then one of the younger officers gasped. Humanity's warship. The humans had finally moved. Far away, at the edge of Vera Prime's system, space rippled like a pond struck by a stone. A hole tore open in the blackness, bright with energy. Out of it came the shape that would haunt the galaxy forever, the Leviathan. The ship was enormous, a beast of metal with a presence that seemed alive. Its hull gleamed with sharp edges, every section bristling with weapons. Escorts followed in tight formation, their engines burning with blue fire. The humans had arrived, and they had come for war. On the bridge of the Leviathan, Admiral Holt stood tall. His officers watched him as he gave his first command. His voice was calm, steady, but it carried a promise of violence. Target the largest Krell ship. Break them. The order spread. Human gunners locked onto their target, a massive Krell battlecruiser, black and spiked, roaring with firepower. Union ships had tried and failed against it many times. To them, it was a monster, untouchable. To humans, it was prey. The Leviathan's forward cannons lit up. Energy built, humming with a sound that shook the ship itself. Then, with a single flash, the main gun fired. A beam of pure destruction shot across the void, brighter than a star. It struck the Krell battlecruiser dead center. The monster ship did not resist. It did not shield. It did not even cry out. It simply ceased to exist, ripped apart in a single strike. The Union admirals who watched through their long-range feeds froze. In all their years, they had never seen such power. On Vera Prime, soldiers on the ground looked up as the sky lit with fire. For the first time, the Krell ships above them broke formation. Confusion rippled through the enemy fleet. The Leviathan moved again. Its escorts darted forward, cutting through Krell fighters with deadly precision. Human weapons were not graceful, not elegant. They were brutal, efficient, and final. Every shot counted. Every strike tore holes in the enemy. But the Krell were not weak. They regrouped quickly, their commanders roaring commands. Dozens of warships turned toward the Leviathan, unleashing a storm of plasma fire. Green light filled the void, crashing against the human flagship. The Leviathan shook, but it did not break. Shields flared, armor burned, but still it moved forward, unstoppable. "Return fire," Holt ordered. Missiles launched in swarms, cutting through space like hunting wolves. They split into smaller warheads mid-flight, overwhelming enemy defenses. Krell ships vanished in explosions, their remains spinning into darkness. Still, the Krell pressed on. They were too many, and the Leviathan stood at the center of their fury. Explosions rocked the flagship as enemy weapons struck again and again. The crew worked without fear, hands steady even as alarms blared. Humanity had built this ship for war, and war was what it would give. On the planet below, Union soldiers stared in disbelief. They had never seen such resistance. One whispered what all of them felt. They're not just fighting, they're winning. Admiral Holt leaned forward as the Leviathan sensors revealed the enemy's flagship, an enormous Krell dreadnought, covered in spikes, dwarfing even Union ships. Its weapons were already charging. "Bring us in," Holt said. The Leviathan roared forward, engines blazing. It was not retreating. It was not holding the line. It was charging straight at the heart of the enemy fleet. The Union admirals who watched from their chamber could not speak. Some were afraid. Some were in awe. But all of them understood one thing: the galaxy was no longer the same. Humanity had entered the war. And the Krell Dominion, for the first time, knew fear. The void burned with fire. Wreckage drifted like broken bones across the stars, the remains of Krell ships torn apart by the Leviathan's fury. Yet the battle was not over. At the center of the chaos, the enemy's dreadnought moved forward, a shadow bigger than mountains. Its hull was jagged, alive with green light, as if the ship itself breathed hatred. On Vera Prime's surface, soldiers lifted their eyes to the heavens. They had seen the impossible already. The humans had destroyed ships no Union fleet could touch. But now, as the Krell flagship came into view, hope trembled. Even the Leviathan looked small compared to it. In the Union's war chamber, the admirals leaned closer to their screens. Every second was tense. If the human warship fell here, then all of their desperate hope would die with it. On the bridge of the Leviathan, Admiral Holt stood at the center, calm as the storm closed around him. His crew waited for his command. His voice came steady, quiet but sharp. "Target their flagship. We end this now." The Leviathan surged forward. Its great cannons charged again, power humming through the ship's bones. Then came the first strike, a spear of energy that split the void and slammed into the Krell dreadnought. The blast lit the battlefield like a second sun. But when the light cleared, the dreadnought still moved. Its shields had held. A deep rumble carried across the comms, the Krell commander's voice, cruel and mocking. "Human machine, you bleed next." The dreadnought's main weapon lit, brighter than anything seen before. A colossal beam of green fire ripped across the stars and slammed into the Leviathan. The human ship shook. Decks rattled, alarms screamed, sparks showered the bridge. The crew held their ground, hands steady on their stations. Hull plating cracked, but the Leviathan did not fall. "Damage report," Holt ordered. "Shields at 60%. Hull breach on lower decks, but contained," replied the officer. The admiral's eyes narrowed. The Leviathan had taken the strongest strike the enemy could give, and survived. "Return fire." Full barrage. The Leviathan's cannons roared. Missiles streaked across the void in swarms. Kinetic slugs the size of buildings launched forward, striking like meteors. Explosions ripped across the dreadnought's hull, tearing away chunks of its armor. The enemy answered. Plasma fire poured like rain, lighting the void in endless storms. Smaller human ships darted between beams, shields flaring, some vanishing in bursts of fire. But they held the line, refusing to break. On the planet below, soldiers and civilians cheered through tears. For the first time in living memory, the Krell were being pushed back. The sky no longer belonged to monsters, it belonged to humanity's fury. But victory was not yet certain. The Krell dreadnought pressed forward, wounded but alive. Its shields flickered, its weapons still hungry. "Admiral," said Holt's tactical officer, his voice urgent. "We cannot destroy it at this range. Their core is buried too deep." Holt stared at the display. He understood. To kill this beast, the Leviathan would need to strike at its heart. That meant closing the distance. That meant risk. He gave the order without hesitation. "Take us closer." Gasps rippled across the bridge. Closer meant entering the dreadnought's deadliest range. Closer meant fire so thick it could tear ships apart in seconds. But no one argued. They followed. The Leviathan roared ahead, cutting through waves of Krell ships like a knife. Human frigates and destroyers shielded its flanks, sacrificing themselves to keep their titan alive. One by one, escorts fell, but the Leviathan pressed on. At last, the human flagship reached striking distance. The enemy dreadnought loomed before them, shields flickering under constant fire. Its hull glowed with cracks, green light spilling like blood. "Now," Holt said. The Leviathan's main cannon lit with full power, brighter than ever before. The beam fired, slamming deep into the Krell flagship. The dreadnought shook, its hull splitting, its voice of defiance turning to a roar of pain. But the Krell answered with their own final strike. Their core weapon lit again, unstable, desperate. Green fire burst forth, colliding with the Leviathan's shields. The void exploded in blinding light. For a moment, everything vanished in the brightness. On the Union's command station, admirals held their breath. On Vera Prime, soldiers fell to their knees. Across the galaxy, watchers froze, waiting to see who had survived. The light faded. The Krell dreadnought was gone, split in two, torn apart from the inside. Wreckage spun into darkness. And out of the fire, scarred but alive, the Leviathan emerged. Its hull was broken in places, shields flickering, but its engines still burned. Humanity's warship had survived the impossible. Silence filled the Union chamber. Then, one admiral whispered, voice shaking. "They did it. They actually did it." But Admiral Holt's voice on the Leviathan's bridge was cold, steady, unshaken. "This is only the beginning." The crew understood. The Krell were far from finished. The war was not won. But for the first time, the galaxy had seen hope made flesh. And the Dominion had seen something worse than an enemy. They had seen humanity awakened. The galaxy did not rest after Vera Prime. For the first time, the Krell Dominion had been forced back. Their dreadnought destroyed, their fleet scattered, their pride broken. But victory carried a price. Human ships lay in ruins, their escorts burned away, and even the mighty Leviathan bore scars across its armor. In the Union chamber, admirals whispered to each other in disbelief. What they had seen was more than victory, it was a warning. Humanity's power was unlike anything they had ever known. And now, with the galaxy's fate hanging by a thread, that power was their only shield. But the Krell were not defeated. Across the stars, their commanders raged. On a dark throne world, deep within burning nebulae, the High Overlord of the Dominion struck the ground with a clawed hand. His voice carried across the command hall like thunder. "Bring everything. Burn their worlds. Break their new toy." The order spread like fire. Krell warfleets gathered in the void, larger than before, each ship armed with heavier weapons. The loss at Vera Prime would not go unanswered. On Earth, news of the first battle shook the world. Families cheered the victory but wept for the fallen. Across every city, lights burned in factories, workers building ships day and night. Humanity had entered the war, and there was no turning back. Admiral Holt walked the damaged decks of the Leviathan. Sparks flickered, armor was blackened, but the ship still lived. Engineers swarmed across the scars, repairing, reforging, preparing for what would come. "Report," Holt demanded. "Shields restored to 80%. Hull repairs ongoing. Weapons systems at full power within 72 hours, answered his chief engineer. Holt nodded. The Leviathan was wounded, but it would rise again. Still, he knew what was coming. The Krell would not make the same mistake twice. In the Union war chamber, the admirals begged for strategy. Some wanted to hide, others to retreat. But when Holt's face appeared on their screens, his words cut through their panic. "The Krell will strike again. This time, harder. If you keep hiding behind walls, they will burn you world by world. The only way to win is to take the fight to them." The chamber fell silent. No Union admiral had dared say such words. But Holt's tone carried no fear. Humanity had fought wars of survival before. They knew what had to be done. Preparations began. Human fleets trained alongside the Union for the first time. Alien captains watched in awe as Earth's soldiers drilled with merciless discipline. Their tactics were different, direct, brutal, efficient. Where the Union fought carefully, humans struck like predators, turning battle into art. Then the call came. Krell fleets had been spotted near the world of Tauros, a planet filled with billions of civilians and defended only by weak garrisons. It would be a slaughter if nothing was done. The Union hesitated. Tauros was important, but to commit their weakened fleets there could risk everything. The debate grew heated. And then Admiral Holt spoke one line that silenced them all. "Humanity will go." The Union admirals stared in shock. Alone? Against a full Krell fleet? It was madness. But Holt's face did not change. "We will not wait for the enemy to strike again. We will not stand by while more worlds burn. If you cannot act, then we will." Within hours, the Leviathan and her escorts leapt into the void, engines blazing. This time, they did not fight for Earth. They fought for strangers, for allies who once doubted them. When they arrived at Tauros, the Krell fleet was already there, their ships circling the world like vultures. Cities below were in flames. Civilians screamed for help. Union outposts were already falling. Then the humans arrived. The Leviathan tore into real space, its presence shaking the void. Escort ships spread wide, weapons armed, engines roaring. Admiral Holt stood on the bridge, his gaze sharp. "Target their command ship. Break their chain." The Leviathan's main gun charged. With a blast like thunder, it fired, striking the Krell command cruiser and ripping it apart in a single hit. Enemy formations wavered instantly, their order broken. Human escorts surged forward, cutting through Krell fighters. Missiles streaked, cannons roared, and space filled with fire. The battle was brutal, fast, deadly. On the surface, civilians looked up through smoke-filled skies. They saw human ships descend like avenging angels. For the first time, Tauros did not fall into silence, it fought back. But the Krell responded with fury. Reinforcements poured in from the far side of the system, massive warships burning bright. Humanity was outnumbered, surrounded, and yet they did not break. The Leviathan pressed forward, cutting through the storm. Every order Holt gave was sharp, precise, final. His crew obeyed without hesitation, even as enemy fire rocked the decks. And then, in the chaos, something impossible happened. The Union fleet appeared. Inspired by humanity's charge, they had followed, arriving late but determined. Together, side by side, human and alien ships fought as one. The battle for Tauros raged across the stars, a storm of fire and steel. And for the first time in history, the galaxy saw a united front, not in fear, but in defiance. The Krell Dominion had come to crush a world. Instead, they found humanity's fire waiting for them. The stars were not silent anymore. After Tauros, the galaxy echoed with stories of humanity's fury. Soldiers spoke of the Leviathan, the monster ship that tore enemy fleets apart. Civilians whispered the name of Admiral Holt, the human who stood when no one else would. Hope spread like fire through broken worlds. But hope always draws shadows. In the dark heart of the Dominion, the Krell High Overlord gathered his warlords. His voice shook the walls of the throne chamber. "They humiliate us. They kill our fleets. They poison the galaxy with hope. This ends." The Dominion did not send just another fleet this time. They sent everything. Warships from across their empire gathered into one colossal armada. Their engines burned like 1,000 suns, their weapons charged with fury. Never before had so many Krell ships moved together. It was not a fleet, it was a storm. Union spies caught whispers of the movement. Panic spread. Worlds begged for protection, but even the Union's admirals knew the truth. No fleet they had could stand against this force. All eyes turned to humanity. On the Leviathan, Admiral Holt listened as the reports came in. The enemy was not sending hundreds, but thousands. Their target was unknown, but the scale was clear. The Krell wanted to crush hope itself. Holt stood silent for a long time, staring at the holographic stars. His officers waited for his decision. Finally he spoke, his voice heavy but unbroken. "Then we fight the storm. Preparations began at once. Human shipyards on Earth roared to life, building faster than ever before. Union fleets rallied, though fear still weighed them down. The galaxy prepared for the largest battle in its history. And then the storm fell. The Krell Armada struck without warning, pouring into the Saros system. It was a Union stronghold, home to billions and guarded by multiple fleets. But defenses collapsed in hours. The Dominion had come with overwhelming power. Union fleets were torn apart, their ships breaking under endless waves. Planets screamed for help, their cities already burning. The Krell pushed forward, unstoppable. Then came the Leviathan. The human flagship burst from the void, its escorts forming a wall around it. Engines burned white, weapons armed, shields flaring. Humanity had not come to hide. They had come to hold the line. The first clash shook the system. The Leviathan's cannon fired, ripping apart Krell warships. Missiles streaked in swarms, tearing holes through enemy ranks. But the Dominion's numbers were endless. 4 every ship destroyed, 3 more pressed in. On the bridge, alarms blared. Human escorts fell one after another, their wreckage burning in silence. The Leviathan itself shook as enemy fire hammered its shields. "Shields at 50%, an officer shouted. "Hold course," Holt commanded. His voice did not break. The battle raged for hours. Union fleets, inspired by humanity's defiance, rallied to the fight. For the first time, aliens and humans fought side by side, holding the line together. But even unity bent under the Krell's fury. Then came disaster. A massive Krell battleship, spiked and burning, slammed through the defenses and struck the Leviathan head-on. Plasma fire tore across its hull, punching through decks, leaving fire and death behind. On Earth, the transmission carried across the networks. Billions watched in silence as the Leviathan staggered under the assault. For the first time, the galaxy saw humanity bleed. "Multiple hull breaches," cried the engineer. "We're losing decks." Still, Admiral Holt stood firm. His eyes blazed with iron. "We do not retreat. If we fall standing." The Leviathan roared again, weapons firing even as fire consumed parts of its body. Krell ships died in waves, but more pressed in, relentless. On the surface of Saros, civilians watched the skies burn. They saw human ships fall, but they also saw them take Krell warships with them every time. Soldiers whispered with awe, even as fear gripped them. "They don't stop. Even when dying, they don't stop." At last, the Krell Armada pulled back, not from defeat but to regroup. They had taken losses, but the Leviathan was left crippled. Entire escorts were gone. Human crews had died by the thousands. Union fleets were shattered. The system was saved, but at a cost. In the war chamber, Union admirals lowered their heads. For the first time, they truly understood what humanity carried. They did not fight for glory. They did not fight for empire. They fought because survival was all they had ever known. And though the Leviathan still lived, scarred and burning, the Krell had learned a dangerous truth. Humanity could be hurt. The war was far from over. The greatest battle was still to come. The galaxy held its breath. After Saros, the war was no longer the same. The Krell Dominion had unleashed its greatest storm, and though the Leviathan had survived, it now drifted scarred, wounded, bleeding steel and fire. The Union fleets were broken, and across the stars, billions whispered the same question. Was hope already dying? The Krell thought so. Their high overlord roared across the void, promising the galaxy's end. A new armada gathered, larger than ever, built to erase not only the Union but humanity itself. They would strike at the heart, at Earth. News of the coming attack spread across every channel. On Union worlds, despair grew. If Earth fell, the Leviathan would fall with it. If the Leviathan fell, then nothing would stand between the Dominion and total victory. But on Earth, there was no despair. There was only preparation. Factories thundered day and night, forging weapons at impossible speed. Hidden shipyards brought forth new warships, forged with every lesson from Saros. Veterans trained new recruits. Even civilians prepared, knowing this battle would decide not only humanity's fate but the galaxy's. On the Leviathan's bridge, Admiral Holt stood with his officers. The ship was still wounded, its hull patched, scars still visible. But its engines burned bright again. Its weapons were fully armed. Its spirit remained unbroken. "This is not only our war now," Holt said, his voice deep, steady. "This is the galaxy's stand. If we break here, all falls. If we hold, everything changes." The Union heard his call. Across the stars, fleets that once feared the Krell now rallied. Dozens of species that had hidden began to rise. They did not all come with strength, but they came with numbers, with will, with fury. For the first time in history, the galaxy stood together. And then, the final battle began. The Krell Armada entered Sol System like a storm of fire. Their warships filled the void, endless, monstrous, weapons blazing brighter than suns. But waiting for them was not only humanity. It was the Union. It was every world that still dreamed of survival. The void lit up as the two sides clashed. Beams, missiles, and plasma turned the stars into fire. Ships shattered by the hundreds. Wreckage spun in burning fields. At the center of it all, the Leviathan charged. Its guns roared, splitting Krell warships apart. Its escorts swarmed like wolves, tearing holes into the enemy lines. Even as enemy fire slammed into its hull, the Leviathan pressed forward, unstoppable. The Krell flagship appeared, a monstrous vessel larger than anything seen before, a fortress of black steel armed with enough firepower to erase planets. Its weapons charged, lighting the void with green fire. Admiral Holt stared at it through the Leviathan's glass. His voice was low, final. "Everything ends there." The Leviathan and its fleet cut a path straight toward the Krell flagship. Human and Union ships threw themselves into the fire, sacrificing everything to keep the path open. The void became a graveyard, but still the Leviathan advanced. At last, it faced the monster head-on. The Krell flagship fired first. A storm of plasma and energy slammed into the Leviathan, tearing away shields, burning through armor. The ship shook, decks collapsing, alarms screaming. "Shields failing," cried the officer. "Then we fight bare," Holt answered, unflinching. The Leviathan's main cannon charged. Energy built until the entire ship trembled. Then, with a thunderous roar, it fired. The beam struck the Krell flagship, tearing deep into its armor. The monster staggered, but did not fall. The Krell returned fire, their core weapon burning brighter than a star. It struck the Leviathan full force. Metal screamed. Hull plating split. Fires spread. For a moment, it seemed the ship would break. On Earth, billions watched the live feed in silence. Across the galaxy, fleets froze, waiting. And then, Holt's voice carried through every channel, steady as stone. "We do not yield. We do not break. For every world, for every life, we hold the line." The Leviathan fired again, pouring everything into its weapon. This time, the beam pierced through the enemy's core. The Krell flagship screamed in silence as its heart exploded. The blast tore it apart, splitting the giant in two. The Dominion Armada faltered. Their command destroyed, their ships broke formation. The Union and human fleets surged, pushing them back, tearing through their scattered ranks. The storm collapsed. The battle was over. The void, once filled with fire, grew quiet. Wreckage floated, but the Leviathan still burned forward, scarred but alive. On Earth, cheers erupted. Across the galaxy, voices rose in one cry of victory. Humanity had not only survived, they had changed everything. In the Union chamber, admirals bowed their heads. The humans they once called reckless had become legends. The Leviathan was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol, a reminder that even in the darkest night, fire could rise. And in the silence of his bridge, Admiral Holt stood tall, his eyes hard, his voice calm. "The war is not finished," he said. "But today, The galaxy is free.